The Unseen General, Ulysses S. Grant and the Weight of Command, read and published by Mr. Books. The Unseen General, Ulysses S. Grant and the Weight of Command seeks to delve beyond the popular image of Ulysses S. Grant as a taciturn, cigar-chomping general who stumbled into greatness during the American Civil War. It aims to illuminate the complex and often contradictory character of a man who, despite his perceived lack of charisma and outward ambition, rose to become one of the most pivotal figures in American history. This is not simply a military biography, but a study of leadership, resilience, and the enduring struggle to reconcile personal ideals with the harsh realities of war and politics. Grant was a man of quiet intensity, a leader who inspired loyalty, not through fiery speeches, but through unwavering resolve and a deep empathy for the common soldier. He was a reluctant warrior, a man who yearned for the simple life of a farmer and family man, yet found himself thrust onto the national stage by the cataclysm of civil war. His early life was marked by a sense of quiet disappointment. He hated the family tannery and was an unremarkable student, except in mathematics and horsemanship. His tenure at West Point Military Academy was serviceable, but not exceptional. His performance during the Mexican-American War, however, highlighted his courage and tactical skill, albeit in a relatively minor role. The years following the Mexican War were a period of profound personal struggle for Grant. Stationed in the Pacific Northwest, far from his beloved wife Julia and their growing family, he battled loneliness, disillusionment, and a growing dependence on alcohol. His resignation from the army in 1854 was a turning point, a moment of apparent failure that would ultimately pave the way for his later triumphs. Returning to civilian life, he struggled to find success in farming and business, constantly haunted by the shadow of his past. When the Civil War erupted in 1861, Grant saw an opportunity to redeem himself and serve his country. His military experience, though seemingly tarnished by his earlier resignation, proved invaluable. He quickly rose through the ranks, displaying a rare combination of strategic acumen, tactical boldness, and unwavering determination. The capture of Fort Donelson in 1862 catapulted him to national fame, earning him the nickname Unconditional Surrender Grant and signaling the arrival of a new kind of Union general, one who was willing to fight the war to its ultimate conclusion. The battles of Shiloh, Vicksburg, and the Overland Campaign tested Grant's mettle and revealed the true depth of his character. He faced criticism, political opposition, and staggering losses, but he never wavered in his commitment to victory. His strategy of attrition, while controversial, ultimately proved decisive in wearing down the Confederacy's resources and manpower. The surrender of Robert E. Lee at Appomattox Courthouse in 1865 marked the end of the Civil War and cemented Grant's place in history as a national hero. But the challenges did not end there. As President of the United States from 1869 to 1877, Grant faced the daunting task of Reconstruction, grappling with issues of racial equality, economic recovery, and political corruption. His presidency was marked by both successes and failures, and his legacy remains a subject of ongoing debate. This book seeks to provide a nuanced and balanced portrait of Ulysses S. Grant, exploring the complexities of his character, the challenges he faced, and the lasting impact he had on American history. It is a story of perseverance, leadership, and the enduring struggle to live up to the weight of command. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button to support the channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an audiobook that could change your life. Now, let's begin. Enjoy. Chapter 1. The Wilderness Within, Early Years and the Mexican War. Ulysses S. Grant was born Hiram Ulysses Grant on April 27, 1822, in Point Pleasant, Ohio, a small town nestled on the banks of the Ohio River. His parents, Jesse Root Grant and Hannah Simpson Grant, were hard-working and respectable members of the community. Jesse, a tanner and leather merchant, was ambitious and outspoken, while Hannah was a quiet and devout woman. The contrast between their personalities would have a subtle but significant impact on young Ulysses. From an early age, Ulysses displayed a quiet and independent nature. He disliked the family tannery, finding the work monotonous and unpleasant. He preferred working with horses and spending time outdoors. His father recognized his aversion to the tannery, and perhaps sensing his son's potential, secured him an appointment to the United States Military Academy at West Point. The appointment to West Point was a turning point in Ulysses's life, though not necessarily one he initially desired. He had no strong ambition to be a soldier, but he accepted the opportunity as a means of escaping the tannery and pursuing a more promising future. Upon arrival at West Point, a clerical error resulted in his name being recorded as Ulysses S. Grant, a name he would ultimately adopt, and one that would become synonymous with military leadership. Grant's academic performance at West Point was unremarkable, except in mathematics, where he excelled. He was a skilled horseman and enjoyed the camaraderie of his fellow cadets. However, he remained somewhat aloof and reserved, preferring quiet contemplation to boisterous socializing. He graduated in 1843, ranked 21st in a class of 39, and was commissioned as a brevet second lieutenant in the 4th Infantry Regiment. His initial assignment took him to Jefferson Barracks, Missouri, where he met Julia Dent, the sister of his West Point roommate, Frederick Dent. Julia was a vivacious and intelligent woman, and Grant was immediately captivated by her. Their courtship was a period of intense happiness for Grant, a respite from the rigors of military life and the uncertainties of the future. The outbreak of the Mexican-American War in 1846 would propel Grant into the crucible of combat and provide him with his first taste of military leadership. He served with distinction under Generals Zachary Taylor and Winfield Scott, participating in key battles such as Resaca de la Palma, Palo Alto, and the capture of Mexico City. While Grant did not command troops during these early engagements, he observed the tactics and leadership styles of his superiors, absorbing valuable lessons that would later serve him well. He witnessed both the brilliance and the flaws of seasoned commanders, learning the importance of careful planning, decisive action, and unwavering resolve. The Mexican-American War was a formative experience for Grant, exposing him to the realities of warfare and solidifying his commitment to military service. He developed a reputation for courage under fire and a cool head in the face of adversity. He also witnessed the devastating consequences of war, the human cost of political ambition, and territorial expansion. Despite his growing military proficiency, Grant remained ambivalent about the war itself. He recognized the inherent injustice of the conflict, acknowledging that it was largely driven by the desire to expand slavery into new territories. This internal conflict would shape his later views on slavery and his determination to preserve the Union during the Civil War. Upon the conclusion of the Mexican-American War, Grant returned to civilian life with Julia. While a captain, he was assigned to remote outposts, far from his wife. This separation and boredom, combined with a lack of opportunities, led to his resignation from the Army in 1854. He would soon return to active duty when the South seceded, but these trials and the battles ahead were unforeseen in Grant's life at that time. Chapter 2: Shadows of Peace, Resignation and Rebuilding. Grant's resignation from the Army in 1854 marked the beginning of a difficult and uncertain period in his life. He returned to civilian life with Julia and their growing family, determined to make a success of himself outside the military. However, he found himself ill-equipped for the challenges of the civilian world. He initially tried his hand at farming on his wife's family's land near St. Louis, Missouri. He named the farm Hardscrabble, a testament to the difficulty of the work and the financial struggles he faced. Despite his best efforts, Grant was not a successful farmer. He lacked the necessary experience and skills, and his natural inclination towards quiet contemplation did not lend itself to the demands of agricultural labor. He then briefly worked as a real estate agent in St. Louis, but the venture proved unsuccessful. He lacked the business acumen and the outgoing personality required to thrive in the competitive real estate market. He struggled to close deals and generate income, and his financial situation continued to deteriorate. In 1860, Grant moved his family to Galena, Illinois, where he worked as a clerk in his father's leather goods store. The job was menial and unfulfilling, but it provided a stable income and allowed him to support his family. He lived a quiet and unassuming life in Galena, largely forgotten by the world outside. During this period of relative obscurity, Grant battled personal demons and struggled with his sense of self-worth. He felt a deep sense of failure, haunted by the unfulfilled potential of his military career and the financial struggles of his civilian life. He occasionally turned to alcohol as a means of coping with his anxieties and frustrations. However, beneath the surface of his quiet demeanor, Grant retained a strong sense of patriotism and a deep-seated belief in the principles of the Union. He followed the growing tensions between the North and the South with increasing concern, recognizing the potential for a devastating conflict. When the Civil War erupted in April 1861, with the Confederate attack on Fort Sumter, Grant felt a renewed sense of purpose and a burning desire to serve his country. He recognized the gravity of the situation and the need for decisive action to preserve the Union. He immediately volunteered his services to the Union Army, offering his experience and expertise to the cause. However, his initial attempts to secure a commission were met with resistance. His resignation from the Army years earlier had tarnished his reputation, and some questioned his loyalty and competence. Despite these obstacles, Grant persevered. He used his connections and his unwavering determination to prove his worth. He eventually secured a commission as a colonel in the 21st Illinois Volunteer Infantry Regiment. This appointment marked a turning point in Grant's life. It was an opportunity for him to redeem himself, to prove his value to his country, and to finally fulfill his potential as a military leader. He embraced the challenge with characteristic determination, embarking on a journey that would ultimately lead him to the highest levels of military command. Chapter 3: Fort Donelson and the Dawn of Victory, a reputation forged in fire. Grant's early successes in the Civil War were crucial in establishing his reputation as a capable and aggressive commander. After securing his commission, he quickly demonstrated his leadership abilities and his understanding of military strategy. His first major victory came at Fort Donelson, a Confederate stronghold on the Cumberland River in Tennessee. In February 1862, Grant, commanding a force of Union troops, launched an attack on Fort Donelson. The fort was heavily fortified and defended by a sizable Confederate garrison. The battle was hard-fought and bloody, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. Grant's initial assault on the fort was met with fierce resistance. The Confederate defenders, under the command of Brigadier General Gideon Pillow, launched a counterattack that threatened to break the Union lines. However, Grant remained calm and resolute. He recognized the weakness in the Confederate position and seized the opportunity to exploit it. He ordered his troops to regroup and launch a renewed attack, pushing back the Confederate counterattack and regaining the initiative. The battle raged for several days, with both sides fighting with unwavering determination. Grant's leadership proved crucial in maintaining the morale of his troops and coordinating their efforts. He displayed a rare combination of strategic acumen, tactical boldness, and unwavering resolve. On February 16, 1862, after days of intense fighting, the Confederate commander, Brigadier General Simon Bolivar Buckner, sent a message to Grant proposing an armistice and terms of surrender. Grant's response was swift and unequivocal. No terms except an unconditional and immediate surrender can be accepted. This response, which became known as Unconditional Surrender Grant, catapulted Grant to national fame and solidified his reputation as a decisive and uncompromising commander. The capture of Fort Donelson was a major victory for the Union, opening up the Cumberland River to Union forces and paving the way for further advances into Confederate territory. The victory at Fort Donelson was a testament to Grant's leadership abilities and his strategic vision. He recognized the importance of seizing key strategic locations and relentlessly pursuing the enemy. He was not afraid to take risks and to make bold decisions, and he was always willing to accept responsibility for his actions. Chapter 4. Shiloh's Lessons. Perseverance amidst the storm. The Battle of Shiloh, fought in April 1862, was a brutal and costly engagement that tested Grant's leadership and his resolve like never before. While the Union ultimately prevailed, the battle exposed weaknesses in Grant's command and raised questions about his competence. Following the victory at Fort Donelson, Grant's forces advanced further into Tennessee, establishing a position near Pittsburgh Landing on the Tennessee River. Grant anticipated further victories and was ready to take the initiative. On April 6, 1862, the Confederate Army, under the command of General Albert Sidney Johnston, launched a surprise attack on Grant's encampment. The Union forces were caught off guard and quickly overwhelmed. Johnston was mortally wounded, leading the assault. The first day of the battle was a disaster for the Union. The Confederate forces pushed back the Union lines, inflicting heavy casualties and capturing key positions. Grant's army was on the verge of collapse. Grant was heavily criticized for his lack of preparedness and his failure to anticipate the Confederate attack. Many questioned his judgment and his ability to command a large army. Despite the setbacks, Grant remained resolute. He refused to concede defeat and rallied his troops to defend their position. He recognized the importance of holding on to Pittsburgh Landing, the key to maintaining control of the Tennessee River. Reinforcements arrived during the night, bolstering the Union lines and providing much-needed relief to the exhausted troops. The next day, April 7, Grant launched a counterattack, driving back the Confederate forces and retaking lost ground. The Battle of Shiloh was one of the bloodiest battles of the Civil War, with both sides suffering staggering losses. While the Union victory was crucial in securing control of the Western Theater, it came at a high price. Chapter 5. Vicksburg, the key to the Confederacy's heart. The Vicksburg campaign, waged throughout 1863, showcased Grant's strategic brilliance and his unwavering determination to achieve victory. The capture of Vicksburg, a Confederate stronghold on the Mississippi River, was crucial to cutting the Confederacy in two and securing Union control of the vital waterway. Vicksburg was heavily fortified and defended by a large Confederate garrison. The city was perched atop a series of bluffs overlooking the Mississippi River, making it virtually impregnable to a direct assault from the river. Grant faced numerous challenges in his efforts to capture Vicksburg. He had to overcome the formidable defenses of the city, the difficult terrain of the surrounding area, and the constant threat of Confederate reinforcements. He launched a series of operations aimed at capturing the city, including attempts to bypass Vicksburg by digging canals and maneuvering troops through the surrounding swamps. However, These initial efforts proved unsuccessful. Grant then devised a bold and audacious plan. He decided to march his army down the west bank of the Mississippi River, cross the river south of Vicksburg, and then attack the city from the rear. This maneuver was extremely risky, as it involved moving his army through enemy territory and cutting himself off from his supply lines. However, Grant was confident that he could pull it off, and he was determined to seize Vicksburg at all costs. The Vicksburg campaign was a masterpiece of military strategy and logistics. Grant successfully executed his plan, outmaneuvering the Confederate forces and securing a series of key victories. The siege of Vicksburg lasted for more than 6 weeks. The Confederate garrison, under the command of General John C. Pemberton, put up a stubborn defense, but they were eventually worn down by the relentless Union bombardment and the dwindling supplies. On July 4, 1863, Pemberton surrendered Vicksburg to Grant. The capture of Vicksburg was a major turning point in the Civil War, effectively cutting the Confederacy in two and securing Union control of the Mississippi River. Chapter 6: Commander of the Union, a Strategy of Attrition. Grant's success in the Western Theater led to his appointment as General-in-Chief of the Union Army in March 1864. He was tasked with coordinating the Union war effort across all theaters of operation and bringing the war to a swift and decisive conclusion. Grant immediately implemented a new strategy, focusing on a coordinated offensive across all fronts. He aimed to relentlessly pressure the Confederate forces, depleting their resources and manpower, and ultimately forcing them to surrender. This strategy, known as total war, was based on attrition. The goal was to inflict as much damage as possible on the enemy, both militarily and economically, to break their will to resist. This strategy was controversial, but Grant believed it was the only way to end the war quickly and decisively. Grant personally took command of the Army of the Potomac, which was engaged in a protracted stalemate with the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia, under the command of General Robert E. Lee in Virginia. Grant launched the Overland Campaign in May 1864, a series of bloody and relentless battles aimed at crushing Lee's army and capturing the Confederate capital of Richmond. The campaign was marked by heavy casualties on both sides, but Grant continued to press the attack, refusing to give Lee any respite. The battles of the Wilderness, Spotsylvania Courthouse, and Cold Harbor were particularly brutal, resulting in staggering losses for both armies. Grant was criticized for his high casualty rates, but he argued that the only way to defeat Lee was to keep him constantly engaged and prevent him from reinforcing other Confederate forces. The Overland Campaign ultimately forced Lee to retreat to Petersburg, a vital railroad hub south of Richmond. Grant then laid siege to Petersburg, a siege that would last for 9 months and effectively crippled the Confederate war effort. Chapter 7: Appomattox and Reconstruction, the Burdens of Peace. The siege of Petersburg finally ended in April 1865, when Grant launched a final assault that broke through the Confederate defenses. Lee was forced to evacuate Petersburg and Richmond, and the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia was in full retreat. Grant pursued Lee relentlessly, finally cornering him at Appomattox Courthouse on April 9, 1865. Lee, realizing that further resistance was futile, surrendered his army to Grant. The surrender at Appomattox marked the end of the Civil War and the beginning of Reconstruction. Grant played a crucial role in the transition from war to peace, ensuring that the terms of surrender were fair and humane. He insisted that Confederate soldiers be allowed to return home with their horses and mules, and he ordered that they be provided with food rations to help them get started. He also urged the Union government to adopt a policy of reconciliation and forgiveness towards the defeated South. Following the Civil War, Grant served as Secretary of War under President Andrew Johnson. He played a key role in implementing Reconstruction policies in the South, ensuring that the newly freed slaves were granted their civil rights. He worked to protect African Americans from violence and discrimination, and he supported the passage of legislation that guaranteed their right to vote and hold public office. However, he faced strong opposition from white Southerners who were determined to maintain their dominance. Chapter 8: Final Campaigns, Legacy and Redemption. Grant won the presidential election in 1868 and served 2 terms as President of the United States, from 1869 to 1877. His presidency was marked by both successes and failures. He oversaw the passage of the 15th Amendment, which guaranteed African Americans the right to vote. He also made progress in stabilizing the nation's economy and reducing the national debt. However, his administration was also plagued by corruption and scandal. Several of his cabinet members were implicated in financial improprieties, which tarnished Grant's reputation. After leaving the presidency, Grant embarked on a world tour. He traveled extensively throughout Europe and Asia, receiving a hero's welcome wherever he went. Upon his return to the United States, he invested his fortune in a financial firm that ultimately went bankrupt, leaving him financially ruined. In his final years, Grant battled throat cancer. He worked tirelessly to write his memoirs, hoping to provide for his family after his death. His memoirs, published shortly after his death, were a critical and commercial success, solidifying his legacy as one of America's greatest military leaders. He died on July 23, 1885, at the age of 63. He was buried in a magnificent tomb in New York City, a testament to his enduring place in American history. His presidency, while controversial, continues to be the subject of public discussion regarding what it means to try to reconstruct a nation after an internal armed conflict. If you found this video helpful, inspiring, or entertaining, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on future content. Your support means the world. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.